In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a classic filet crochet rose doily. Now, this is the basic pattern. This piece was made with a size 10 crochet thread and a size 2 crochet steel hook. In addition, I'm going to also show you a couple of different approaches to this particular design if you're interested. So the first approach I'm going to show you is the painted approach. And then also quickly, as we move along, I will be using a size 0 crochet hook, steel hook rather, and you can see the difference in size. So this particular doily, while it's the same pattern as this doily right here, this one was made with a hook, or rather a steel hook, which is size 0, and this one was made from a steel crochet hook size 2. So you can see the difference it makes in the size of doily you get. Now for both of these and all the pieces, I used your basic size 10 crochet thread. And so I wanted to give you kind of a juxtaposition between the two sizes of steel hooks you might use in terms of this project. Now, the next idea or approach to this piece I'm going to show you how to make is the 3-dimensional rose approach. So let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Weird siblings, weirdlings, and just fun people. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you a thing, but it does help me to provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns, and lacy motifs. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. Now let's just go ahead and get started. All right, so as you can see, I have 4 different colors here. These colorways are what I'm using. As mentioned before, these are size 10 crochet thread, and this is what I'm using, and this is what I recommend for this particular piece. However, you can use any size thread or yarn that you care to use with an appropriate size hook. It'll all work out just fine. It'll just either be bigger or smaller, or maybe have a different texture depending on the type of yarn or thread or the size or the weight of those that you choose to use. But this is a size 10. In addition, I am going to be using a number 0 steel crochet hook. Now, as mentioned before, you could use a number 2 crochet hook, steel hook, if you wanted to make it a little smaller, as shown in the introduction of this video. Just a pair of scissors. And then I would recommend a tapestry needle, something with an eye that's an appropriate size for the thread or yarn you might be using. So before we get started, there's a couple of things I'd like to explain. This particular piece, I'm doing something a little different with the video because it is a filet piece, and filet pieces rely very heavily on charts. I am going to provide you with a couple of charts. You have the first chart is going to be the first half of this basic doily, and then the second chart you see is going to be the second half of this doily. Now, the reason why I do that is because there are some differences in the stitches that you're going to use when you begin this doily, and then those stitches change up a little bit, or the approach to it changes up a little bit once we get to the second half of the doily. In addition, I will also include a step-by-step written pattern with the doily graph itself. But before I show you the graph, I want to go ahead and I want to get this thing started for you, because I'm going to talk about a thing, or rather how to accomplish a kind of stitch. Well, it's a stitch we all know pretty much, most of us anyways. It's a basic stitch, but a lot of times people will look at a filet graph and they just don't understand how how the ends are finished off, and I get it. And once I show you how that's done, for those of you who don't know, you're just going to look at it and you're going to go, well, crap, that was so easy. I don't even understand why I didn't figure it out to begin with. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a chain of 20. This is how we're going to start. So 1, 2, 3. So now I have a chain of 20. And what I'm going to do is I am going to place a double crochet in the 8th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. And that's going to be my first opening. And then next, I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2, and then I'm going to place a double crochet into the next stitch. So really what I'm going to do is I am going to repeat that 4 times. So 1, 2, skip 2, and then I'm going to place a double crochet into the next stitch in order to make my next opening. And then again, 1, 2, skip 2, and then a double crochet in the next stitch. And I'm going to do that 2 more times. And then now 1 more time. Okay, so I've got 5 windows. I've completed my chain 20, and now I've gone through and I've almost completed my first row, but there's a few more chains I need to make in order to complete the first row. So now to complete row 1, I'm going to need to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Next, I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to place a double crochet into the 8th chain from my hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then next, I want to chain 2. Then I want to skip 2, and I want to place a double crochet into the next stitch after that. Now at this point, I'm actually following the pattern, and you're going to see this graph here in just a moment, so hang tight. Just follow what I'm doing or pay attention, and it'll make sense to you here in a second. So now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to make a series of double crochets. I'm going to double crochet 15 times. So that'll give me a total of 16 double crochets if I count the double crochet that I just made into this last stitch. And then I'm going to place 2 double crochets inside that 2 chain space because, well, there's 2 stitches there. And then I'm going to place my next double crochet into the double crochet. And then I'm going to place 2 double crochets into the next 2 chain space. And I'm going to continue this until I've counted out the appropriate amount of double crochets that I need. So now I've actually just completed my 15th double crochet. I need 16 double crochets total. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my last double crochet into the 3rd chain from this double crochet right here. So my 3rd chain is going to be right here. Okay, so you can see what row 2 looks like so far, but I'm not quite finished with row 2 because I want it to be the same on both sides, and so I need to make 2 more windows for this left side of row 2. So this is where it can be a little tricky for some people until you know. You don't know until you know. So really what I'm going to do is for the first window, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to make a treble. And what I'm going to do then is I am going to go ahead and tie that right here into the same stitch I made my last double crochet into. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. And what that gives me is that gives me my next window. And then I'm going to basically do the same thing for the second window that I need that kind of hangs over the ledge here. So again, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to make a treble, and then I'm going to insert my hook right here in the middle of the last treble that I made. And I'm going to complete this treble. And that gives me my next window. So that's row 2. And this is where the edging of my fillet starts. So you can see it starts right here, and this is where we're working at. And then now I'm going to move on to row 3. I'm going to show you row 3 real fast. And then I think you'll have the idea of how this is done. And then we're going to just move on to the written directions along with the graph. So at this point, I'm not quite finished with row 2 yet because I want to get it set up for row 3. So as before, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now my row 2 is actually complete now, and I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to start on row 3. And for row 3, I want to place a double crochet into the 8th chain from my hook. Right in here. And I'm going to create my first window, and I'm going to chain 2 per my pattern, and then I'm going to skip 2 and I'm going to place a double crochet right here into this next stitch. Just like that. And then according to my pattern, I have 6 more double crochets to place. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right here into this next double crochet. Okay, so you can see it's starting to take a little bit of shape. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to create a window 5 more times. So I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2, and then I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2, and then I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to do that 3 more times. Okay, and once more, and that'll give me 5 windows. And then per the pattern, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 6 double crochets into these next stitches. So the 2 double crochets are going to go into this 2 chain space. And then 1 is going to go into this double crochet. And then 2 more are going to go into what would be the 2 chain space. And then the 3rd chain from this double crochet right here is where I'm going to place my last double crochet, my 6th double crochet. Now for row 3, I want to make 2 more windows sort of overhanging the edge here. So again, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to make a treble crochet and I'm going to insert my hook right into the same stitch that I placed my last double crochet in. And then I'm going to make my treble. And that'll give me my first window. And then for my second window, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to make a treble crochet. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go right here in the middle of this last treble I made. And this is where I'm going to tie in. And I'm going to complete this last treble. And I'm almost complete with row 3. So now what I want to do is I want to set myself up for row 4. And row 4 only has one window that's playing an overhang. So what I need to do is I'm going to need to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then in order to start row 4, and we won't complete it, but I'll just show you how I started, I'm going to turn my work. And I'm going to place a double crochet into the 8th chain from my hook, which is going to put me right here. And I will start following the pattern for row 4. So you can see how this is going. And then just to give you a quick heads up, these fillet pieces are something that you really do want to block. Now, if you're using 100% cotton thread, if you want to kind of bypass the blocking or the traditional blocking, you can actually use your iron set on a cotton setting and using the steam option, and that will help you basically iron block your piece into place. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get to it. Now, once you've completed row 14, your piece should look something like this. And next, we're going to be moving on to row 15. And with row 15, we're going to start to decrease the rows. So here, we stair-stepped out, we increased, and then now that we're going into row 15, we're going to start to decrease. So I'm going to quickly show you what that looks like. And it's real simple, so it's only going to take a moment. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch 3. So I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And then in the stitch after that. And then one more time into this next double crochet. And this is where I'm going to begin my row 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to skip 2 and then I'm going to make a double crochet. And then next I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make 3 more double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3, right? And basically after, I'm going to just continue as I have been working my stitches exactly the same way as indicated in the pattern as I've done on all the other stitches on the inside of the work. Basically, I just stopped the basic video in order to show how to start the decrease. So of course we're going to come down here and we'll end up ending right here and make our turn and then continue as indicated with the pattern. Okay, so now that we have the basic doily completed, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to edge it out so that we can clean up the edges and give it a nice polished appearance. So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to half double crochet for each stitch. However, there's a couple of caveats, so if you'll just follow with me, I'll be happy to show you what those are. So I'm going to begin with my half double crochet. So that's 2. And instead of placing a half double crochet in this next stitch, I'm simply going to place my 3rd half double crochet into that chain 2 space, just like that. And then I'm going to jump over the double crochet stitch and I'm going to place another 3 half double crochets into the next 2 chain space. I'm going to continue that along the straight edge of this piece. And then when we get to the corners, outer and inner, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what it is that should be done, or at least how I do it. So now we're getting ready to move into this first corner piece. I've got an outside corner and this has 5 stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to half double crochet 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now what it's done is it's brought me into this inside corner. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another stitch. I'm going to begin my first half double crochet and then I'm going to do begin another half double crochet right into the next 2 chain space, just like that. And basically what I'm doing is I am crocheting 2 half double crochets together. And what that does is that brings in my inside corner stitches. And then I'm going to place 2 more half double crochets, so 1 and 2. And that's going to bring me into my next corner piece, which I'm going to half double crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, just as before, I'm going to half double crochet 2 half double crochets together because I'm at an inside corner. So I'm going to get my first one started, and then I'm going to start my next half double crochet. And that is 2 of them together. And then I'm going to half double crochet 2 more into that same 2 space. And then I'm at my next corner, which is going to again be 5 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, I'm going to half double crochet 2 together to join these two spaces right here with this inside corner. So one, and then my second half double crochet, and then together. Okay, now this one is automatically on a corner, so technically I have my one stitch for this 5 chain space, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to half double crochet 4 more. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then again, I'm going to half double crochet 2 together right here at this inside corner. So I've got the 1 and then the second half double crochet that I crochet together. And then again, I'm going to continue and I'm going to make 4 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I have a total of 5 half double crochets, but I want to have a total of 6 half double crochets. So I'm going to place 1 more half double crochet right into that corner piece. And then we're going to move on to the next 2 space. And I'm going to place 2 half double crochets in there, 1 and 2, which brings me back to my next inside corner. And so I'm going to do 2 half double crochets together between the 2 inside corners. So that'll be 1, and then that second half double crochet together. And then I'm going to half double crochet 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, which gives me my 5, but I want 6, so I'm going to do 1 more right there to finish out that corner. And then I'm going to place my 2 half double crochets. And then next, because I'm right here at an inside corner, I'm going to do 2 half double crochets together. So 1, and then my second one together. And then because I want 5 more in this corner piece, total of 5 more, I'm going to half double crochet 5, 3, 4, 5. So that gives me a total of 6 half double crochets in this corner. And then again, I'm going to continue along this flat edge, putting 3 half double crochets into each of those 2 chain spaces. So I think at this point, I think you get kind of the gist, the way I work this edging around this doily. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to finish this up, and I will meet you right back here and we will discuss the next steps for the next 2 processes that you can work right off of this basic doily. If you want it just the way it is, beautiful and perfect. If you want to explore the other 2 ideas that I have offered, stick around and we will get right to it for you. So once you've finished the basic classic doily, and this is a very classic vintage sweet style, you can do it in any color you like. Each color is going to evoke a different emotion. That emotion can play itself out appropriately in whatever decor you choose to use. These can be mounted in a frame. You can have this as a standalone on a favorite piece of furniture, or you can certainly use this piece as an insert into a larger lace piece you may be working on. So next I'm going to move on to the next technique that I'm using this particular style of doily with. This is the same pattern, same doily. I just use a size 10 crochet thread. Everything same, except with this particular piece of lace, I painted it. Now, I will use the kinds of paints I use are basically inks and pigments. And this is something you will want to experiment with. It's something you want to play with. And you really want to do this. So my suggestion is, if you're not sure what you're doing or how you're doing with a piece like this, you might want to pick up some old lace or some old crochet piece, doily or something that you find at, let's say a thrift shop, or maybe something you happen to have lying around, and use that to practice on. Get your technique down a little bit, because it can be tricky. And because you're working straight onto a piece of your own lace, I'm going to tell you right now, pigments and inks are not forgiving. You need to be very careful from start to end because it's very easy to mess up your piece. Sometimes you get an effect that's amazing and it's a, as Bob Ross would put it, a happy accident. But more than often, if you're not real careful, you might find yourself particularly frustrated in terms of all the work you put into your doily. So I strongly recommend you work to kind of get a basic technique down first before you put a lot of work into actually creating your lace piece for painting. However, painting your lace, I think, is an absolutely beautiful technique. I enjoy doing it. I think I just, have to live dangerously sometimes, and and if you call painting the lace you spent so much time on living dangerously, well, we'll just have to go with that. However, I'm going to show you a few minutes of kind of the way I approach it, and you can watch that, or you can just shoot ahead. It's going to be about 4.5 minutes long, and you can shoot ahead and see the next more three-dimensional approach that I take to this particular kind of doily, and that will be where the next part of this tutorial actually picks up. Now, the next example of what you can do with this basic doily, another approach, and I've already started, so you can see where I've made yet another one of these little doilies, but I use a red variegated thread, size 10, as mentioned before. And then I have this petal here, and I'm going to show you how to make the next petal. So you make two of these petals. I'll show you how to make the inside of the rose. You can see how I lay these pieces right over the actual fillet design of the rose. I'll quickly show you how to make a Romanian cord that will serve as not only a stem, but I'll also show you how to make this leaf with its little stem attached to it. So with all that said, let's just go ahead and get started with the next step of this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a quick little reminder as to how to make a Romanian cord. I'm going to begin by making my slip stitch. Then I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now, some people are going to tell you that you can do this by chaining 2, and others are going to tell you you can start this by chaining 3. Either way is fine. It all works out exactly the same way. The only difference is you have a chain 2 or a chain 3 to begin with. So whatever works for you is fine. Because what you're going to do is you're basically going to go to this first chain that you made, and you are going to make a single crochet. And then you're going to turn your work a quarter turn away from you, and then you're going to see this loop right here, that little loop. And in that loop, or that little sidebar, you're going to go ahead and you're going to create another single crochet. And then you're going to turn your work again, a quarter turn away from you. And then the next thing you're going to see is now you have 2 bars basically in the same position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook into both those bars, yarn over, pull that yarn through, and as before, create my next single crochet. Now I'm going to do a quarter turn away from me, and again I'm going to repeat that last step. I'm going to insert my hook into those 2 sidebars. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that through, and then I'm going to yarn over and complete my single crochet. And I'm going to continue doing just that until I have the length of Romanian cord that I want to work with. So basically you're just going to keep on working just like this. And eventually you will have the length of cord you'd like to have. And in my case, I just went ahead and I sewed that on. Now, in terms of the stem and leaf, you're going to begin your leaf exactly the same way. So we're just going to continue to pick up where I'm at here, and I'm going to decide how far or how long I want the stem of my leaf to be. So I want it to be a little bit longer than that. So I'm going to make a couple of more stitches in terms of my Romanian cord, and then I'm going to work right into the beginning part of my leaf, and I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So again, a quarter turn away from me, insert my hook into those next 2 sidebars, yarn over, and then complete my single crochet. And do that a couple of more times. Now that I have my stem, as long as I'd like to have it, at least the stem that's going to have the leaf attached to it, I'm going to move on to making the leaf part of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 14, 15, and 16. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from my hook. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place a half double crochet. And then I'm going to double crochet 2 times. So 1 and 2. Next, I'm going to treble crochet 7 times. So 1, 2, and 7. Next, I'm going to double crochet twice. So 1 and 2. Then I'm going to place a half double crochet in the next stitch. And then I'm going to place a single crochet in the very first chain that was made. So now I have the first side of the leaf. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cross over. So I'm simply just going to pivot my work, and I'm going to work in the same chain, but just on the other side of it. And in that side, I'm going to make a single crochet. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror what I just completed. So I've got my single crochet, and then I've got my half double crochet. Next, I'm going to have my double crochet 2 times. Then I'm going to do my treble crochet 7 times. Now, once I've completed my 7 treble crochets, I'm going to go again and I'm going to make a double crochet twice. Then I'm going to make my half double crochet. And then I'm going to finish off with a single crochet. Now we're going to move on to round 2 of the leaf. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 1. And then in this very first single crochet, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 3 half double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to place a half double crochet in each of the stitches down this first side. So I'm just going to continue on like so. Okay, so once I've completed down the one side, I'm going to just basically do like what I did before, and I'm just going to cross over, and I'm going to pick up in the single crochet right across from it in the leaf, making my next half double crochet. And then I'm going to continue making a half double crochet in each stitch until I've completed this round. Now, once you've completed the round and you put your half double crochet in your very last stitch, just go ahead and join in the chain that began the first stitch, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off a nice long tail, because this is a tail I'm going to use to sew this leaf into place the way I'd like to have it. Okay, so now you can see how I've sewn this leaf on right here. I've connected it, and you can do whatever you like with your leaf. So like, for example, with this first leaf, I just went and turned up the edge a little bit just to give it a little more visual interest. But if you would prefer to just lay your leaf flat like I did here, that's perfectly perfect as well. Now let's move on to the petal. As I mentioned before, you're going to want to make 2 of these large petals. And so I'm going to get to the large petals in just a moment, but first I'm going to show you how to make the small petals. And it's the small petals that I'm going to use to make the inside petals of the rose. And you're going to want to make 4 of them. So to begin with the small petal, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to begin by making a slip stitch. And then I want to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next thing I want to do is I want to work 7 double crochets into this first chain. So I'm going to begin. I got 1, 2. So now that I have 7 double crochets completed plus my chain, my first row is completed. Now next I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to turn my work. or you can turn your work and then chain 3. It really comes down to personal preference. I know I kind of bounce back and forth, and sometimes it just kind of depends on where I'm at with my work, and other times it just depends on what I think feels better for the piece. But either way is going to be fine. So now what I want to do is in the next stitch, I want to go ahead and place a double crochet. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. And then in the stitch after that, 2 double crochets. The stitch after that, 2 double crochets. And the stitch after that, 2 double crochets. So you should basically have 4 stitches with 2 double crochets in each of them. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a double crochet. And then in my chain 4 stitch right here in that very top chain, I'm going to go ahead, because that's a stand-in for a stitch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 1 more double crochet. And then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and that'll be the start of row 3. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to place a double crochet in the next stitch, and then a double crochet in the stitch after that. Now in the next stitch, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. And then the stitch after that, I'm going to place 1 double crochet. And then I'm going to place 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. And then another 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. Then I'm going to place 1 double crochet in the stitch after that. 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And then in the next 3 stitches, or the last 3 stitches of this row, I'm going to place 1 double crochet in each one of those stitches. And that's the completion of row 3. So then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and that's the beginning of row 4. Now for row 4, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to just place a double crochet in each stitch for this row. Now once you've completed row 4, you should have something that looks like this. Next, I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to chain 1, and that's going to be the beginning of my row 5. Then I'm going to skip this next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I am going to make a single crochet. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to make another single crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to make a double crochet. And then in the next 9 stitches, I'm going to place a double crochet in each one of those. So I should have a total of 10 double crochets in this row. Okay, so now once I have my 10 double crochets, I'm going to place a single crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. Just like that. Now that's the completion of row 5. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and this is going to be the beginning of row 6. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a single crochet. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place another single crochet. And then again, one more single crochet in the stitch after that. Next, I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Just like that. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 3 double crochets into the same stitch. And then I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And then after that, I'm going to place a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then in the very last stitch of this row, I'm going to simply make a slip stitch. But I still have a couple of more rounds to do. So basically what I'm going to do is, so I've completed rows 1 through 6, and now I'm going to do my first of 2 rounds. I'm going to begin by making 1 single chain, and then I'm going to place a single crochet into that same stitch. And I'm going to evenly place a single crochet in each of the stitches all the way around my petal. Now, once you've made a complete round and you're back to where you started in terms of your single crochet around your petal, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join into that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Then I'm going to make a chain. And now I'm going to begin a reverse single crochet or a crab stitch. And I'm going to do that in each one of the stitches all the way around. So for those of you who don't know how to do this stitch, it's quite simple. So I have my chain. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the next single crochet that's going in my rightwardly direction. And I'm going to create a single crochet. So then I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into the single crochet to the right of my work. And I'm going to pull that yarn through, and then I'm going to create my next single crochet. So basically it's making single crochets, but in reverse of what you would normally do. And I'm going to do this process all the way around. And then when I've completed this round, I will have completed my petal, 1 of 4 that I need to have for this piece. Once you've completed your round, you're just going to come in here and you're going to join with a slip stitch, and you're simply going to fasten this off, and you're going to leave yourself a little bit of a tail because this is what you're going to use to sew your petal into place. So now once you have your 4 petals, or rather your 4 small petals, we're going to move on to the 2 large petals that you will need to have. So now to start the large petal, we're going to do exactly what we did for the small petal for the first few. Once you've repeated rows 1 through 4, as you would have done with your small petal, we're going to shift things. We're going to mix them up a bit because this is the large petal. And so for row 5, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn my work, I'm going to chain 3, and now I'm going to begin row 5 for the large petal. So I'm going to begin by making a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to place 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. And then I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. and then 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. And then again, I'm going to place a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And then 2 double crochets in the stitch after that. 1 and 2. And then I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches to finish up row 5. Just like that. And then I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And that'll be the beginning of row 6. Now for row 6, I'm going to simply place a double crochet in each of the next stitches all the way across. Once I've completed that, I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be the beginning of row 7. Now for row 7, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. Next, I'm going to place a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. So now I should have 11 stitches left, and in each one of those 11 stitches, I am going to place a double crochet. So 1, 2, 10, and 11. So next I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1, and this is going to be the beginning of row 8. Now for row 8, I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a single crochet. And then I'm going to place a single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to place a half double crochet in the next 2 stitches after that. And then I'm going to place a double crochet in the next 7 stitches after that. So 1, 2, and 7. Now after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet in the next 2 stitches after that. And then I'm going to place a single crochet in the next 3 stitches after that one. 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to skip this next stitch. And then in my last stitch, which is the 3rd chain of the next 3 chain stitch, I'm going to place a single crochet. And that completes row 8. Next, I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to chain 1. Now this time I'm going to skip the next stitch, and I'm going to place a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. And then after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a double crochet. And in the stitch after that, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3 into the same stitch. Now in the next stitch, it's just going to be a single double crochet. And then after that, in the next 4 stitches, I'm going to place a half double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to place a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to skip the next stitch and I'm going to place a single crochet into that last stitch of row 9. So that's how you do rows 1 through 9 of the large petal. Now, as before, we're going to work 2 rounds around the entire petal. So I'm going to begin the first round by making a chain 1. And then I'm going to single crochet evenly all the way around the petal, just like we did with the small petals. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to meet you right back here when I've completed this round of single crochets. And then as before, like with the small petal, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to begin my second round with the reverse single crochet. I'm going to complete that round, and then I'm going to fasten off, leaving myself a tail for sewing. It's time for me to start sewing these pieces on in a way that I think is going to look pleasing. So I'm probably going to go ahead and fit this piece something like that. And I'm going to take these 3 pieces and probably work them around similar to this. And then this I can kind of make look sort of similar to what you might with a rosebud, and then kind of place it right there in the center. So this is going to give you plenty of room to play with, plenty of ways that you can figure out which way you like your rose best. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sew this, and then I'm going to meet you right back here in about 2 seconds. Okay, so this video was a little different this time around, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And until we meet again, stay creative, stay amazing, and always weave your own weird. Bye-bye now. I look forward to seeing you next time.